Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of His and Hers Rules of Engagement. I am one of your hosts, T, joined as always by my beautiful co-host, Rocco Bella. How you doing today?
Today I feel fantastic.
Wonderful. And today we are jumping into yet another topic that is, always one of usually a contentious topic. And we will do our best, as always, to try to bring it in a more conversational realm where we will address these things in a way that will bring civility to the topic. And, we both have our perspectives, and that's what makes this show so interesting. So today's topic is actually gender roles. Now, this is always something that people have an issue usually with the term role, and it feels like somebody is being boxed into something. So when you hear gender roles, what is the thing that comes to mind for you?
Specific characteristics of a man and a woman, like how a woman is supposed to behave and act and present herself, and how a man is supposed to behave, act, and present himself. These are your roles. This is what you do when you get on stage. This is how you act.
Right.
So, yeah.
And stepping outside of those roles are usually frowned upon and almost, heavily criticized, right? And so today we're going to talk about, like, where do these gender roles originate? How are they, formulated? How do they play out? And do we think that it's more, societal, or is it something that, males and females gravitate to naturally? And I think for me, it's a combination of both, right? So when you have the situation of men and what it is that we do, or we go outside of the house and we have to be tough and we have to be strong and we have to be fierce and the protectors, and women are expected to be the child bearers, the rearers, the first knowledge givers to the next generation, to the children, the people who stay home to take care of that front when the men are out doing whatever it is that they're doing. I think some of it comes to us naturally, but some of it is definitely trained. What are your thoughts on the nature versus nurture aspect of this conversation?
I think media plays a big role in it. And if we think about the process and how it is presented to us, so the first person that you see are your parents. You see your parents, and you maybe you mimic your mom, maybe you mimic your dad, and then you go out into the world and you see other people. But nowadays, I don't know if you're familiar with the song that just dropped, the two very famous built women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and there has been some talk behind how that is possibly a setup to get young girls more sexually active so they can become promiscuous and then have babies and, this whole thing. So who's watching that? Who's influenced by these two personalities?
Right.
We could do our best. My gender role comes from my mom and teachers, but I will say that when television, when I was exposed to television, I would see, back in my day, it was like Janet Jackson. I would see how she would do things. So, I'm going to model my femininity behind, Janet Jackson and what she does and everything. Definitely. Because you watch Martha Stewart on TV, and you see her cooking, and then you see But then you see male chefs cooking, and that's a whole nother conversation, because they talk about males and females.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting dynamic, because when you talk about careers, right? And it's so interesting that, so when a woman is a cook or a chef, she's identified as a cook, right? And then that becomes more of an identity tied with, what she should be doing and how she should be kind of tied down. But when a man cooks, it's more likely that they will call him a chef. And even the term chef comes with a position of authority or a thought of authority. A chef runs the kitchen and makes the decisions, whereas if you just call somebody a cook, it's almost as if it's in servitude of others. And the same thing with, like, my wife, she is a tailor, she is a fashion designer, but then you will have people that will call her a seamstress. And when you take the two terms, seamstress, tailor, usually tailor is reserved for men, and it has a different higher tier of prestige to it, right? And if a man sews clothes and makes clothes, it's not tied so intimately into who he is. It's looked as a career. If a woman makes clothes, it's almost looked upon as, okay, that's what she should be doing, and she should be making clothes for the family, and it's not given the same amount of prestige as if when a man does the same thing. And these are traditionally viewed, like cooking and making clothes, traditionally, in what we are, how we're reared, are feminine traits or feminine roles. But when a man does it, it almost doesn't even effeminize him. He masculizes the role itself and then
Right.
brings authority to it. So what
Right.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Think about hairstylists. Okay. I can go, I wear my hair low. I can go to a barbershop and my barber can dye my hair. If it's long, when it was longer, he would wash it. He could cut it and trim it and do all the things that a female, stylist can do. There are effeminate male stylists, but there are also masculine ones who can get in there and really do it. But you don't associate a masculine stylist. You usually think that they might be, not masculine. They might be feminine. And it's funny because as you were talking and you were like, and I never thought about that. Like, a man is a chef, like right away. Let him, just somebody who learned naturally how to cook, let him go in my kitchen. He's chefing it up. I go in there, I'm a cook, or you passing me the onion and asking me to, maybe I could be a sous chef. The executive chef role is, unless a woman owns her own business, it takes her years to get there. So when you were like, yeah, she's called a cook, you should have seen my face. I was like, cook. Then when you started talking about the lovely Mrs. Lee, and like they refer to her as a seamstress. No, she's not a seamstress. Like, she's a tailor. And we know I know of men who, make suits, and they're couture, and they're, and they're not feminine, but they're fashion designers. And that is so crazy that's even, even a thing. That's just
so those are the dynamics that I believe are, that's the nurture part. That's the societal influence part.
Yeah.
That's where I think when we just talk about gender roles, the entire conversation kind of gets corrupted because of what we put on it as people. Now, I do believe that when I was talking earlier about child rearing, a man can't do that. That is not something that biologically or naturally we can do. So when you say a woman's role is primarily, taking care of the next generation or the children, like the food is implanted within her, like the child for the gestation period of just the pregnancy, She is the primary source of all of the nutrients of everything that she does. That child is going to benefit or suffer from, right? And so it's a level of responsibility that's on her that is not necessarily on the man. Now, in most committed relationships to this day, right, the modernized men have tried to, join in with the, okay, I'm going to, try to put myself in the place of my wife or, the mother of my child to make sure that we go through this as a team. But there's certain things that we just can't feel, right? And it's certain things that we just can't do. So, that's more of the nature aspect of how gender roles are formulated, because there are certain things that men are doing that women, if the woman is at home and taking care of the children and the man goes out and hunts for the food, me, I always go back to the beginning of humanity,
yeah,
because that's how these things formulated, right? They formulated from somewhere, from the things that we were already doing naturally. It's when society comes in and when we actually, start to stabilize and we start to build structures around our natural actions that they become boxes where we start to build walls around what is acceptable and what is not. And I believe that is where that gender role conversation becomes contentious, because I don't believe that, women can't do a certain thing or men are not allowed to do a certain thing. I just believe that majority of us gravitate towards certain things. And so I wanted to move into the first topic, and we kind of talked about it, but it becomes like a woman's role, a woman's place is in the kitchen, and men bring home the bacon. I said turkey bacon because I don't eat pork, but the saying. So it's just interesting where we get tied to those things, and we tie our value into that. And I believe you spoke about this a little bit earlier in a previous episode about how you were raised. You want to talk about like a woman's place being in the kitchen, and when I say kitchen, that's the kitchen, that's the house, that's homekeeper, housewife type mindset, and all the things that go along with that. So share with me some of the things that you kind of grew up with, and then also share if you've grown out of any of those things, and how did that happen.
All right, that's a loaded one. So a woman's place is not just in the kitchen, but it's barefoot and pregnant and in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's how that whole expression started off. So I was raised by a southern mother. My mom is very southern, so we have those southern values, which translate into roles. Just a woman is in the kitchen. My dad has a really deep voice and I'm going to watch the game. Go get me a beer, woman.
Right.
So, and so those roles were clearly, defined. My dad took on the masculine responsibilities and my mom took on the feminine. I'm laughing because as we do these shows and I become more and more educated, more and more aware, saying masculine responsibilities just sounds like a contradiction. But but when we moved from, Louisiana up to New Jersey, and it was just a different vibe. The pace was faster. I come from a family with both of my parents. I started seeing a lot more. A lot of my friends didn't have their fathers in the homes with them. So you got the woman just basically doing, everything. Or then this other thing comes up where when the son gets old enough, right? That whole man of the house kind of thing that they talk about. There's a lot of error in that. That's a child. He should be put in a place of trying to be the man of the house. Right. And then even like, I was just thinking, because a lot of what you were saying, again, I was doing all the frowny faces. I'm a single mom. I couldn't teach my son how to pee. Like I can't show him by example. There are things you can buy, like little frogs that you can stick in the toilet and you tell him to aim, but am I going to grab his and aim it for. That's just weird.
Right.
So I was fortunate enough to have some male role models like my cousin and my father who could just kind of, take care of the details while I did the overall. But I think I've told you this before. If you ask my son whether or not you need both parents in the house, he will give you his opinion and he will tell you no. He said it's very possible. And it's good to have both parents, but if that does not exist, it doesn't mean that you have to feel like, and I'm such this bad example of a human because I'm raising this kid by myself. You could still be a single parent and be proud and get your job done. One of the things I wanted to touch on too, when you were talking about the gender roles, think about when you see a man with his young daughter in the park. There's more cause for alarm than everyone seeing this father playing with his child because people start assuming certain things. That's not commonplace. They're not used to seeing a man in the park changing the diaper and all these other things. They're quick to want to call 911 because they think something crazy is going on. Yeah. So yeah, but just to go back, I mean, we've touched on these in past conversations, like when a woman is making more money than the man, like that example that I gave, like I took my turkey bacon and put it in his pocket before we went to the restaurant so he can, have the appearance that he was doing. And I didn't do it in such a way it was like, here, take this so you could be the man in there. I was like, oh my God, okay, we're going to be in public. I don't want to be like bawling out and paying a bill. So I'm going to slide this to you. But I mean, I don't know. Media is just distorting so many things. And one of the questions that popped into my head is like, what is real? Are they picking and choosing the examples that they show of what we're supposed to be doing? And they're just showing the worst image, especially of our people. If we could find people who are not influenced by media and are just raising their kids without all this external stuff, would we see a difference in the roles? I mean, I got a big old raised bed garden in my backyard. I would love for a man to come over here and do my farming for me, but I'm gonna have to but I would also love if he came and we did it together. Together we worked on it and we got it we got it done. I think that's what's missing. The garbage bag is full. Woman, take the garbage out. Don't walk by it and be like, oh, I need him to take the garbage out. It's this dishes in the sink. Load the dishwasher or wash them. Whatever you do, whoever is available, whoever is free.
Looking at these things as partnerships, because the thing is, and I always go back to this, and this is pretty much just my stance on it. I think we don't learn early enough together, right? So we learn in these echo chambers, and women learn from other women, which is definitely necessary, right? Men learn from other men, but we don't learn what the others are learning at the same time. So when we get into being involved with one another, whether it be romantically or platonically, we're lost because we're coming from only our perspective. We do not have a perspective or any type of knowledge from the base of the other person, of the other sex. And it creates these discussions and these topics that we don't know how to introduce. And we just go on what we've seen, like you said, in the media. A lot of what we know about one another or how we think we know about one another comes from movies, television, songs, and all of those things. And so, as for me, when it comes to like bringing home the bacon, right? I am, as a husband, when I think about, okay, what is my job? Where is, what am I bringing to the table? If I'm not working, am I worthless? And it goes to the fact of when you think about just dating, will a man date a woman who is still living with her parents or who has never gone out on her own? Is that even something that a man considers as, a red flag or a deterrent? Whether a woman has her own, car, job, funds, will date women who are independent, who have their own stuff. And I'm talking about up until your early to late 20s, or will marry a woman right out from their, parents' home. That isn't something that we look at. So, and then you ask a woman, will she marry a man who is 28 still living with his parents? Is that something that is being weighed in that conversation? Because from a man's standpoint, majority of the time, that aspect is not being weighed from the perspective of a potential wife. But will a woman accept a husband who hasn't proven that he can carry his own load, that he can take care of himself? So and that's a double standard. But double standards exist for a reason a lot of the times, right? They don't always have to be like they don't always have to be constrictive, right? Because what a man is looked upon, his value comes from the provision, and a woman's worth is something else. So what is your take on that?
Okay. You got me thinking this morning. So a couple of things popped into my head as you were talking about. I think you're familiar with the expression like marrying below or above your status. Like women will marry beneath their status, and men will marry above their status, or vice versa. Women like to find a man. And then I heard some things about like, be the person that you want to date. If you have all these expectations of this mate that you want to find, then you should have those things, in yourself. So again, the conversation, you have to find somebody that you can talk to. Not that you can have a conversation with, that you can communicate with. That's what I was saying. Communicate. You have to be able to communicate with this person. And then you touched on it. You said value. So what is provisions? Is it just money? Because sometimes that's what it boils down to. Is it like, if you're only after him because he can bring home the bacon, what about the fact that you can't reach that spice all the way up there on the third shelf, and he could just come in and just grab it for you? That's a value. Now you can cook a little sooner than you did, or he could cook sooner, whatever's going on in your house. But you have to. It's almost like, I think of it in terms of like being an entrepreneur. You want to, and what you want to charge people. Sometimes you might lowball yourself and charge yourself, lower. But if you value yourself, you give them a higher ticket, because they're not just bringing to the table, this service, they're bringing experience. So what kind of experience does this man have? And then you get into these cultural things, like some men like their women wrapped up. One guy, he was like, you need to wrap your head. And I was like, why? He said, would you take an unopened piece of candy from me? No, but I ain't no candy. Like, I don't want to wrap my head. So it's just, so for a man to find a woman who's still in their parents' house, kind of preserving herself, he's really into that. Have you ever watched Married at First Sight?
No, I've heard about it. I know people who watch it, but no, I haven't.
Well, I think if you watch it from a single perspective, it makes you appreciate communication and the relationships that you have. There was one woman on there who was a virgin, and that was just her trophy. She was just dangling it all about, back to a woman's worth. She kind of felt like, oh, I'm not going, she just had all these, they had gotten married, and he was just like, we married, like, what's up? Like, why can't, you could hear conversations he has with her boys and conversations he had with his girls. I had to Google it. I was like, do they still stay together? Because I couldn't, it was agony just kind of see this thing on a day-to-day basis. And I learned that they didn't stay together. And one of the reasons was he was just like, it was too much. She was so protective of this prize pony that she had been holding on for her entire life. She probably needed to find herself a virgin, someone who valued it just as much as she did. But
the thing is with that virginity, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to being a double standard. Women are looked upon and valued in being that pure form. But if you, as a man, tell women that you're a virgin, they're going to look at you like you can't do anything for me. And even, and it's like, that's not something that women are seeking for the men to be pure. They want you to know what you're doing. And so it's just, it's interesting how those two things play. And then on that virgin tip, women find value in it because depending on how they are raised, they're taught that, okay, this is an element that will make you, precious or special. And it's something that you should keep until marriage that, will bring more value to you, that your husband or the person pursuing you will look upon you as, something that is rare or something that is, pristine and will bring worth to you. So that when we talk about the worth of a woman and the value of a man, a lot of men tie everything that they hold dear as their manhood to what it is that they can provide and what they bring to the home. And when they lose that, or if they are never able to have access to that, then they don't know exactly what their value is outside of that. And that's sometimes where that toxicity that we spoke about before comes in, because now, so for me, from my perspective, I always looked at women like, okay, I know exactly what she is bringing to the table. Like, she's the one who is the most responsible during, the child bearing and the child rearing. We drop off some seed and we can, our job is done, right?
Yeah.
Until the the person arrives, right? And then we can start to do some things. And of course, we can help her along during the pregnancy, but we're not really doing much, but making sure that she is at home and protected, and that, no, nothing else happens to her. Our job is to be that shield. And one of those things that we're shielding is making sure that nutrients are provided and comfort is provided. And most of the time, that boils down to finances and making sure that we are secure in that area. So, in my brain, what clicks on is, okay, I have to work. I have to make sure that I'm doing my part. And a lot of my value, like 80% of it, starts to go into, all right, what am I bringing to the table? Because I can't help her on the biological side, right? Not right now. And then when when we get to a point of, all right, now we're in the home. So if the woman has been taught how to cook and she cleans in a way that, okay, I don't want you cleaning because you don't do it right. Or, I don't want you doing certain things because I need it done my way. So at every point around the household, okay, don't design this. I need the bed to look like this. I want the room to look like this. I want it this color. I want the furniture to, present it like this. My wife styled our entire house. I had little to nothing to do with any of it. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But at a point, I'm like, okay, so what am I contributing?
Right.
What am I doing here? Am I just here? Am I just like muscle that she calls when she needs it? All right, open up this can, open up this bottle, reach this from the sink. Sometimes you just feel like a tool. And it's like, okay, am I just a tool?
And can a brother buy a rug? You know what I mean?
And it's like, okay, so what is our worth? Like, what do women value in men? And that's really why I like having this conversation, because when we have the contentious types of conversation, we hear a lot about what men are not doing. But I want to know, okay, so from your perspectives as women, what should we be doing? And then what is it, what is your value? What is the value that you're seeking out of us, aside from just what we financially bring and our, physical strength and height.
I keep losing my thoughts. I gotta stop that. That's why I try to write some things down. So you said a mouthful, and I cannot believe I'm like drawing a blank. I was so interested in what you were saying that I forgot to take notes. So we're talking about a man in the household, and it's funny when you were talking, I was like, can a brother just go buy a rug? And as you were saying that, I felt you like getting, that's fine. Just put the bed there. It's like, I wanted it here, but that's fine. Oh, that's okay. Yep. Can we put some black in here? It's like a bunch of roses and stuff.
Right.
It's ours. I've even had conversations like that when I've designed a couple of wedding invitations where the bride would just come in and she'd talk about this whole thing. And then I had consultations where the groom was like, we're going to put some of me on this invitation. I like blue. So then they compromised and they decided. And sometimes I would ask the bride, like, there are no elements of him in this invitation. Like, can we do an accent color, like something a little more, deep purple or something? And they'd be like, I never thought about that. It's my day. So that is so funny how we don't even think about like what is a man's value. Here's what I was going to say. So I've heard that men are the ones who decide when to get married. Like a woman could be into a guy, but he knows that while he's with this particular woman at this time, he's not going to marry her. And then they could be together for years. And he finds someone, he gets married immediately. And then she's just like, well, what was wrong with me? One of the things I've heard about this is that it's a financial thing. Like a man has to, and I think Steve Harvey said something like this, like he has to have his finances in order. That makes him secure. Or he's not even ready to pursue marriage if he hasn't checked some things off of his list. Where a woman might be like, oh, we'll make it together, we'll grow together, and I'll have my separate bank account, you'll have yours, and then we'll have a joint, and all these things. I mean, waiting to exhale with what's her name, Angela Bassett, walking away, throwing that fire. That was like empowering. They're like, I'm gonna do that. Prenups, all of these things come up, like prenups, and let's do all these things. But you meet somebody, you're attracted to them, you have sex with them, a kid might come out of it, and then you're like, okay, now we got to get married, we got to figure this thing out. Having these conversations with you is really making me think what my online profile needs to say and how to engage in conversations when I get myself back out there and start being like, oh, he's not responding quick enough. And then what I do on the online dating is I always ask a question because I'm trying to engage. And then when he just says, it's cool, I'm like, you're not, I'm fine, like nothing. And it's like crickets. I'm like, oh, this is boring. Mm-hmm. But so just back to that, like he won't marry until he is ready. And women just we're just like, I mean, literally, we got one finger. And when you ask the question, we hit enter, everything activates. Here comes the dress. Here comes this, everything. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, nah, not you. Okay, that one, not. And then I don't know. I just don't understand men sometimes.
So, and that's interesting because I think that balance actually plays out, right? So if you say that men decide when the marriage is happening, I think it's a fair trade-off that women get to plan the whole wedding.
Okay.
Because they are just, they're sitting there unless you're the woman who proposes. And then, most women don't want to do that. But I've heard some women like these Gen, what are they, Zs? These Gen Zs and the lower like part of the millennials, even you're like, I just go and get what I want. If I want it, I'm going to ask. But majority of women, even they're like, I'm not going to, because you feel like it lessens your value because you are the prize, for lack of better terms, and not to be, trophied, but it is presented in that way. Even when you go all the way back to, chivalry and how it all started, it's all about, winning or showing your honor and being worthy of the woman. And then you kind of receive her as like as a prize. And it goes to that that end where, okay, this is me giving her access to, fulfill this dream that she's had, and that ties back to traditional gender roles and how those thoughts begin. So for me, I think that most double standards, there are double standards that benefit men and there are double standards that benefit women. And a lot of the times we focus on the double standards that benefit us negatively,
Mm-hmm.
and without realizing that there are, double standards that we benefit from, and that, we wouldn't give up. What are your thoughts on that conversation? Like, do you think about double standards, and when you are complaining about one, do you ever even realize the ones that you may have benefited from?
No, I don't think about. I just, if I just say a double standard thing, but always it goes back to, if a woman is promiscuous, she's a hoe, and if a
Mm-hmm.
man is promiscuous, he just gets high fives all the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I've even started to notice, you know, a lot of women having babies and bouncing, carrying it the whole 9 months, not even wanting to carry it. And then you see these men with baby strollers taking, pink masculine is
Mm-hmm.
all get out with a pink stroller. And I'm talking about like even in the hood, like a single father
Right.
struggling to raise his kids, learning how to braid hair and all of these things. So I don't know, we're in some crazy times right now, just
Yeah.
with everything that we're being exposed to. So back in the day, or I've never experienced it, but like arranged marriages, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when they had no say in what they were going to get, and then the values came from like the fathers or the mothers, like, oh, he's got 5 horses, a pig, and we can use all of that. And then he's like, well, she has a cow and 7 sheep, and let's get together so we can have this cow sheep pig kind of thing going on with our families. And then they decided, you're going to be with Bobo Johnny Jim because he has these things that we need, and you're going to be with Samantha because her
Right.
family has the things we need. So I don't know. Just like I keep going back to this. It's communication is key, but determining, like, how often do you have these conversations? Do you wait until you bump into like a wall? Like, have you ever went out? Did you ever go out and just try to buy like a chair?
Not like, I remember, because like when we first got married, she wasn't here yet because she's from Africa, and we got married in Africa. And so I came back here and started doing the immigration paperwork and all that stuff. So I bought us a bedroom set, and I always wanted an all black bedroom set, like black bed, black dressers, black everything. And so I bought that, and I bought a bed specifically because, with drawers in the bottom of the bed, because I knew that I wasn't going to get any closet space. Like, I bought myself a separate like armoire that I put together to put my clothes in that I hang up, because I knew she was going to take over the whole closet, and then try to put drawers in the bed where I could put the rest of my folding clothes, because she was going to take up the whole dresser. And she got here and was like, okay, yeah, this is okay. And started to kind of, add her accent to all of that black that I put in the room. And so it was just funny because, I I didn't mind. We went shopping together, but it was like, if she was if she was gung ho about something and I was okay with it, that was okay. If she was gung ho about something and I didn't like it, it like still 70% of the chance got bought anyway. But if I was gung ho about something and she was like, no, it wasn't going.
It wasn't happening.
No, right? And so, there's a balance there, that's where she determines things. And I'm okay with that. Because I understand that if she's happy, I will get a chance to breathe. But the funny thing is, if she's happy and I'm not, the house is cool. If I'm happy and she's not, there is no such scenario. There is no such thing as my wife being not happy and me finding joy. I could even like be watching football and she's disgruntled. It ruins the entire game. Now I can't even focus. And it's like, okay, God, now I have to turn my whole day into figuring out what's going on with her. And so, like I said, we as humans will focus on the things that we feel are bothering us or the double standards that work against us, but not really, highlight or even notice the ones that, are benefiting us. And it isn't until it is brought to our attention that it's like, oh man, you know what? I do, get to do that. Or I do have an opportunity to, like, if I am working, I do go outside of the house every day and see other people. Whereas if she's just in the house, she's, going stir crazy and doesn't have that access to the world, even though I'm feeling like, bruh, my access to the world is me going to work. I don't want to see those people. If I could switch places with you, I would. And so that's like in most situations. But, my wife and I both work. And so that's just not, our scenario. But I can understand how, people can feel that way. Because when she first got here, she was new to the country. She was still, learning English. And so she wasn't going to many places. And so there was a time that she was like, I don't never go anywhere. You go out, you come back, and I just be in the house. And I was like, I never thought about it like that because I was trying to do my job. I'm still trying to learn the ropes of what being a husband is. And it was just funny about you bringing up promiscuity because, like I said, a man being a virgin is not valued. So if I go in there and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not only going to get ridiculed by her, she going to tell all her friends that I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so that's a whole nother thing where it's almost, even from other women, required of a man to have more experience before he even ends up with the woman that he's going to be with. And a woman, we will be like, okay, she'll get into it once, we get the rhythm of it and learn each other. But I don't know any men who was like, oh my God, she was just horrible. And it kind of ruined her reputation, right? So our reputation is tied to performance and length of performance and all these things, right? So it kind of balances off that promiscuity conversation because, and I don't know how you feel about it. You can respond to that because, if somebody is, if it's out in the city that, oh, that dude is a minute man and he don't really know what he's doing.
It's
right?
A wrap.
I got to move to another city. It's like you don't know who knows each other. Like that's 6 degrees of separation. Like, oh, that's that dude. You don't know, especially like right now. I'm so glad I'm not dating right now. But they might take a secret selfie of you on the phone, be like, girl, this one right here.
Right? Create an Instagram account just for like everybody post your 6-minute men on this page.
And so when it comes to, promiscuity in women, there is no value in, I'm not saying that people don't value when a woman knows what she's doing in her performance, right? But I'm just saying that it's not tied to her reputation in a way where men will talk amongst other men and be like, don't get with her. If she's fine,
yeah,
we don't care what she did. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the interesting thing. So what's your take on that?
Well, the thing too, it's interesting that we're talking about sexual relationships is when you're with him and you're learning each other, and then you do something that might be viewed as freaky, then all of a sudden he's like, where you learn that from? And it's like, I just figured it out. I've gotten into that, conversation, like, how do you know how to do that? And I'm like, do what? Like, I went with this way, I went that way. And then, and I just did a little thing. And it's just that's always like weird. So you just have to take the time to get to know people. So I was thinking a lot about what you said, and the word counseling came to mind. Going through counseling, like when you decide that you want to get married, going through counseling. And one of the benefits that I think about that is you have another person coming in and asking a question that the two of you would not have thought about. So you can just get married and go about your life the way most people do, and then they figure it out, and they're like, oh, I hate that you do that. I didn't know you do that. And now you do this thing and I hate it. But being with a counselor, they could, like I said, ask a question that you're not thinking. Like, have you ever, what was your childhood? Who you like is your mom? And then all of a sudden he's over there like, yo, she got a lot of issues. And she might be like, I don't know about him. I'll say this too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about the football thing and how the game is not, you can't watch the game if your wife is not 100%. I hate the Redskins because of a relationship. Literally, he would not pull his head away from the TV. Like, if I was here talking to him, he would be like, still watching the game and then trying to listen to me and be like, yeah. And I'm like, you didn't even hear what I said. I'm ready to go. But then you know what I did? I said, let me see what this football thing is all about. I picked the team, figured it out, and was like, okay, I got a beer, you got a beer. The Redskins on. I'm voting for everybody that's playing against the Redskins and the Patriots, because I don't like none. But that's funny. Both of those teams because of relationships. Because I didn't get attention when I don't like the Redskins or the Patriots because of those exes.
That's hilarious. And just for the note, the Washington football team is no longer called the Redskins. Oh. They're just called the Washington football team right now.
Really? So they went ahead and. Man, that's a whole other topic. They are like,
yeah, it's the dumbest thing in the world.
I mean, they were trying to get somebody off of the one of the dollar bills, like George Washington. I think they were trying to take him, somebody who was racist. They're trying to get him off of the dollar, off of the money, and it's like, I don't know. Can we fight the coronavirus?
I know, right? But the thing about
the Washington football team.
It's one of the dumbest things ever, and I want to stay on football for a minute, right?
Okay.
So we, when I first got married, I knew, okay, Sundays, I explained to her, football is my favorite sport. It comes on once a week, maybe twice a week if I'm interested in that game, right? But most of the time, it comes on once a week. I would like for you to watch the Atlanta teams with me. Everybody else, you don't have to be interested in. But if Atlanta is on, I need you to be paying attention. And I want you to learn the game so we can share this together. But also, please don't ask me to do things on Sunday, because that is going to upset my rhythm. And I'm telling you this now so that it won't cause any type of disagreement or argument in the future. Because I've seen it happen with my parents. I've seen it happen with other people. I've seen my father just straight ignore my mother when Pittsburgh is on. And I'm like, okay, he's going to pay for that later. So learning from that mistake, I was like, let me pre-address it, because no, I'm not going to listen to you while the game is on. And if you want to ask questions about how football works, do it when Atlanta is not playing. I'll teach you the whole game while Detroit Lions is playing the Cleveland Browns, right? Because I don't care who wins that game. But please don't ask me what a first down is while Atlanta is on, okay? Because I don't know. I need my energy to flow through the TV to make the team do what I need them to do. Right? So if I'm explaining stuff to you, it's going to throw off everything. But, these are things that I already had in my brain way before I even found the woman that I was going to marry.
Those are your rules of engagement.
Exactly. That's what this show is about. right? Learning that.
So do you
And
have those listed somewhere, like in a frame?
No. I just I continuously had conversations about these things, and I wanted to know, okay, when to not disturb you, because like my wife, my wife is from Africa, and she loves cooking because it's something she's been doing forever, right? She actually genuinely enjoys doing it. You see her and it's a smile on her face. And most of the time, she's cooking dishes from Africa. Fortunately, I lived in Guinea before I even met her, so I enjoy these dishes, so I don't mind. But sometimes I may want, some fried chicken and some collard greens, some stuff I grew up with. And so asking her to learn how to cook those things are points of conversation. So it's all about me saying, all right, having the conversation beforehand. And when it comes down to even the gender roles, like people see it as constrictive. I don't believe that they have to be. I think that gender roles in each relationship or even in each um, interaction with men and women can be discussed between that man and that woman about how those are going to, be realized in that relationship.
Yep.
Because
How that,
what
yeah.
I believe, like football is my favorite sport. Like I said, I'm going to stay on that topic. So, and I said this before, where a quarterback is only as good as the wide receiver or the running back, right? So if the quarterback throws a perfect spiral, it hits the receiver right in the hands, like accuracy on point. If the receiver drops the ball, that lowers the quarterback's quarterback rating. Whether he threw it perfectly or not, it wasn't a completed pass. And so he's going to be judged based on that. Now, there are going to be some people who only look at the numbers and the stats. And if the stats say that your passer rating is down, it's down. There are going to be some people who actually look at the video and see, no, he's good, but he just didn't have a team around him. Everybody's not going to go that far. So what I do is I try to play my role. Sometimes my wife is the quarterback, sometimes I'm the receiver. In the kitchen, she's the quarterback. She runs how we grocery shop. She is in charge of the grocery list of what the ingredients are going to be. And I may say, hey, can I get this? And then, I like, every so often, can we have like, some hamburgers? Can we every so often can we eat, tacos? Like, and I know it's gonna be like only 10% of the time. So I'm on the sidelines in those areas. And when she cooks and she cooks like 5 meals in one day, I will wash all of those dishes and she'll take the dishes that I just washed and cook something else. So then I'm washing the same dish like 3 times in one day. But that's an agreement that we've come to. We take care of the kitchen. She takes care of our nourishment, and I make sure that everything is clean. And that's something that I understood that going in, that I just can't expect her to do everything, right? Even if I am, going out to work, even if I'm bringing in the primary elements of, you know, our spending, it doesn't matter because we both live in the household together. And so those are just general rules that we came up with, but those are our roles, right? That's a role that I have taken on. That's a role that she has taken on. I don't think gender role in itself has to be a negative and, hold that negative connotation where it's so constrictive. I believe it's flexible in everyone's relationship. There are decisions that I make and she plays the sideline. And honestly, none of them are coming to my mind right now because, like I just said, we always focus on the things that we don't quite benefit from and we don't realize the places where we are, in more authority given. And so it's just funny in that way because, it doesn't always have to be so restrictive or, constrictive. And I wanted to, piggyback on, you mentioned Meg the Stallion and Cardi B and the WAP, right?
Yes.
And it's funny because I hear more complaints about women's promiscuity from other women.
Mm.
What is your view on that? And am I mistaken? Because I do hear men say it, but sometimes I think a lot of these roles are reinforced by, the sex that you're in or the gender that you identify with.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with a woman questioning. It's about perspective. So she sees big booties and she knows she got a little booty, and she's just looking at it, she's like, is that what they like? And then I think she comes in and she wants to kind of discredit, that, oh, I see you watching The WAP, and look, what's about, Rocco WAP or whatever. But I think she just compares herself to these images that she thinks her man, likes. But if you're in a good, solid relationship, your man will look at Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion and lust all over them, but he's not going to do anything. He's not interested in that all. Then that's because they're putting it all out there on Front Street. But I think there's a lot of women just kind of looking at themselves, and they're like, is this what I have to do to get attention? I'm not going to do that. Therefore, that is bad. Look at her. She's doing that. I don't do that. I walk 3/4 the cloth, never show him my stuff off. I'm covering up for him and, everything else. And they just put it all out on Front Street. So I do think a lot of that comes from just a woman kind of checking herself. Because even if you look at Beyonce, and she may like expose herself, but for some reason she just doesn't always look stank. It just looks more refined, And then what did I just do? Did I just call Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion stank? And then you think about their background and where they came from, and we do have a stripper culture. Chris Brown sings about it all the time. It makes a little girl say, "Oh, if I want to get somebody like Chris Brown, I think I'm gonna be a stripper," or maybe being a stripper is okay. And then if you talk to strippers, you get the background as to why they're strippers and why they chose it. They were dancers, and this is how they could dance and still, perform. And they have rules and values. But it's that, man. It's so deep. That's why communication, and I keep going back to that, it just has to be clear. And I was having this conversation with my friend and with a friend of mine, and basically we got to stop settling for stuff. I think we said this last time. If you're dating and he does something, don't glaze over it. Just be like, I don't think we can continue, or just maybe say it. Maybe he's not aware.
Because I will say, as a man, women a lot of the times will say, why I'm mad, and I have no clue. Say it, please. Just tell me. Humor me. Just say it. And I guarantee you, if I did know, I would try to do something about it if this is like a relationship. But sometimes women will get mad and hold on to it, and sometimes it feels like they're tallying things up. Like, I'm gonna write it down in this book. Okay, you did this, you did that, and it's like, okay, if you told me on that first note, maybe I could have by now put it into practice and changed and lived up to that standard. And that's another thing about, how we engage with one another.
Yeah.
Like, I think women act that way with one another. And so they bring it to how they act with men. And it doesn't perform in the same way because we don't receive it the same, or we may not be aware or looking in that direction. But I wanted to talk about gender roles in another aspect of it, of like how we grow up, because like how we gravitate to things. And one of the big things that people talk about is men, liking rough things. Like my nephew loves dinosaurs, and it wasn't like we put dinosaurs or action figures around him. He gravitated toward dinosaurs. My niece loves to play with dolls. And it's like, no one is forcing her to do that. And I do believe that there are outliers, but I think that sometimes when we get into the arguments of gender and the social constructs of it, sometimes we overthink it. We over intellectualize okay, maybe this imagery is being pushed out there toward them. Yeah, but nobody, I think even more so than the dolls, like my nephew liking dinosaurs, I don't think that was something that can be heavily pushed. If it was like him liking muscle men, then I could kind of see that. But him gravitating toward these big, reptilian, creatures, that's just something that he likes, and he likes to see them, destroy things and eat people. It's just like the same way that I like Tonka trucks and breaking things down. I like smashing stuff. And it's just, okay, where does that come from? And is that, can that be, have you seen people over intellectualize gender and try to make it into, something more than what it is?
Probably, but I can't think of, like, give me an example of,
okay, so I've
what you
seen
mean
these
by that.
I've seen some parents, and a lot of them have been celebrities. I've seen them like, I want my child to, not be constricted. So I'll put my boy in female clothes, or I'll put dolls around them. Yeah. And it's like, why? Because now it seems like you're pushing them just to be the opposite.
Right.
And, to create conversation or to create this dialogue that's like overly feminine or overly breaking down that gender construct. And we said in a previous episode, when we defined the differences between sex and gender, sex is biological, gender is socially constructed, right? But those social constructs come from the things that the biological sexes at some point naturally do. And I would say a majority of them do. So, like, what are your thoughts on when people are doing that? And it's not everybody, but there are, a select amount of people who will try to over intellectualize or just do the opposite for the sake of, creating conversation.
Yeah, I'll say this. A lot of celebrities, and I don't want to get into some conspiracy theory stuff, have a child who flipped genders. Like a lot of them. Magic Johnson, Dwayne Wade, Charlize Theron,
right.
Cher, R. Kelly's little daughter, son now, a lot of a lot of them, a lot of them have kids who have switched, genders. And I almost think sometimes it's like there's a club for them. Like when your kid switches, you're going to get even more money. You just come, but I'm not going to go there. So one of the things that I want to talk about is with my son, I never bought guns. I was one of those, like, I'm not buying him a gun, da, 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 da. He would pick up his racing car and be like, pew, pew, pew. Like, it didn't matter. He would go outside and find a stick and be like, pew, pew, pew. And I never bought him a gun. As a matter of fact, when he was like 28, I was doing a Toys for Tot thing, and there was this water gun. He's like, Mom, I gotta have, you never let me have guns. Just let me have this gun. He's 25 now. It's a water gun. One of those, like, shh. So it's really kind of funny. So that goes back to, I would have never thought, well, let me buy him a baby doll and a Tonka truck and just allow him to practice his fatherhood at the age of 5. That would never come to my mind. And the way you talked about Tonka trucks, you sound like you still have a few. You were like, I like Tonka trucks. I was like, you got Tonka trucks in there somewhere back there.
I wish.
But yeah, and then one other thing too, is every Father's Day, my son will call me and wish me happy Father's Day. And I'm just going to say he's so angry with his father being absent, or he's kind of over it, that he would do it on purpose. And I will always be like, okay, stop putting it on social media. If you have to say it, you just text it to me, because I have a strong belief that fathers don't get enough love anyway. Don't wish me, I'm not a father. Don't wish me happy Father's Day. But it makes him feel good. So it's our inside. First time he did it, was like, happy Father's Day, Mom. Now everybody knows you're a man. And he would and he would also say stuff like, when I parented him, he could tell when like the dad side was coming out. Like I would nurture as much as I can. But with boys, you can't. There are sometimes you can't really be like, put that away. clean your room. You got to be, boy, if you don't clean that room, like, and I'm like, whoa, well, that bass comes from my voice. But I had to do that, you know, in order to.
That's funny because I grew up with both my parents, and I remember early on in my childhood, my father was more of like the aggressor. But as my brother and I got older, my father became more like a friend because our interests started to align. Like we both like, well, I have an older brother, so the three of us like sports, the three of us like the same shows, the three of us like the same thing. And then my mother became more of the disciplinarian as we got older because my father was more like our buddy.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting from like the age of, you know, infancy up to about 13. My father was definitely the mean one and the one who gave out all the whoopings and things like that. My mother gave some and she would fuss at us. But I don't, and coming from somebody who had both parents and two grandparents, I saw there is a streak where my grandmother was scarier than my grandfather. Like her calling my name was like, oh man, I'm in trouble. And it's like, I don't think, and it's funny that that is tied to masculinity, that toughness. Because if you know anything about Black mamas, period, whether the man is there or not, she is an enforcer. And I think that's just something. And I think it does women a disservice to just only tie that to masculinity because it takes away some of the strength of what comes with, you know, her femininity. There is strength in being feminine, and it doesn't always come in, you know, the soft touch package. So, and I've had a problem with, you know, women telling happy Father's Days to themselves. Now, you know, you and your son, you guys have your relationship and he has whatever relationship he has to his father and why he does those things. But it's like, if you look at Father's Day, period, when you go to a restaurant on Father's Day, you can always get a table because it's never packed because nobody cares. When you try to go to a restaurant on Mother's Day, you're going to be sitting there. You already know that when you get to Red Lobster, when you get to Cheesecake Factory or whatever restaurant, you about to get one of them pagers and it's about to be an hour, 30-minute, 2-hour wait. And y'all just about to sit in the car with the air conditioning going with your balloons and your cards, right? On Father's Day, people just be strolling in there like it's a Wednesday night. Like it's the same Sunday and it's almost like on a regular Sunday after church, you would have a harder time finding a table than on Father's Day. And I think, you know, I think that speaks, you know, a lot to people's perceptions of fatherhood. And I think when you look at certain things, like I grew up with a lot of people, and I grew up in a housing project. I grew up with a lot of people who had their fathers. Of course, I grew up with a lot of people who didn't. But I remember seeing a lot of dads and conversations of my dad is stronger than yours and my dad can beat yours up. I remember having a lot of conversations about fathers. So they were present. They were there, you know, in a lot of instances. So it's just funny how the narrative of the absent father got so, you know, carried through in that way. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know, of course, there are more, if you look at the statistics, there are more, you know, single mothers than there are single fathers. And probably there is an imbalance there. But what's going on with that? And I know you
Well, first of all, it's again the question comes up is like, is it real? I think for me, it started when I saw LL braid his daughter's hair, I think on a McDonald's commercial, you know, back in the day, her ponytail was up here. It was an effort. So you're starting to see men step up a little bit more. And now that we're having this whole same-sex marriage things, you see two fathers, you know, out there, out there doing their thing. But Lost my thought again. I didn't take notes, man. You are so intriguing. I'll be like, I don't know what to say. But I grew up just like you. I grew up with both fathers, both my parents in the household, and my dad was a very strong presence, but I didn't have a lot of friends that I could be like, my dad would beat your dad up, because they was like, well, my dad ain't here, so now
right.
I win by default. So it's I don't know, it's weird, but and having father around, I mean, I turned out to be a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean. And I'll say this time and time again, I think I made some bad choices when it comes to men and dating, but I don't care what I did in my past. I wouldn't change any of it, because I love where I am right now. And all of it has benefited to me being very happy at this moment in time. Right. So ask me that question again. Ask me.
No, I was asking you about, Father's Day and how that representation of absent fathers became like the predominant thought.
Okay, I got it. So Mother's Day, what happens to moms on Mother's Day? Everybody comes around, they grab mom, they take her out to dinner, they do these things. What have I seen happen on Father's Day? The men get together without their kids, they have barbecues, and they be drinking beer. I don't even know if they talk about their kids, but the mom sits and she receives, flowers. They just be like, yo, it's Father's Day. It's my day. I'm about to go out. I'm a father of some things. Like, what is that? Like, I've and even like, I was like, well, can you come get your son on Father's Day? No, me and my boys having a Father's Day cookout. What the hell is that? Yeah, so I don't know, maybe that's how they do it up north. It might be different down here.
I've never seen that. So that's brand new to me. So it's just, all those things are just interesting. So like we always say, the point of this is to get new perspectives, yes, right? And to listen to each other and to learn. And yes, I always learn different things from you, and just having this conversation, being able to be conducted in this way, we hope that it models something to those of you who are watching. And we hope that you, try to have these types of discussions in your own life. Leave in the comment section, like, comment, share, subscribe these videos, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on social media. Leave in the comment sections questions that you may have, or even comments that you have that are regarding the gender roles. Like, right, when you first hear that term, what does it spark in you? Does it spark that idea of the negative connotation, or have you grown past what, how it's been presented to us, and can see it more in that team aspect, the way that I view it? Because I don't see role as a restrictive or constrictive type of theme. But yeah, I've been T, and as always, I appreciate the wonderful dialogue that we have, Rock. And we will see you guys next week as we talk about so much more in terms of this rules of engagement. And we will, start to lay out how we need to interact with one another. And we'll get to that point. You want to end out with anything, Rock?
Yeah, my takeaway is always, anyone who's had as T and I are talking, if you say, I never thought of it like that, I want to know what your I never thought of it like that is. If you something of a way of doing things, if you're hearing it for the first time, I want to know, like, oh, I never thought of it like that. So that's my little thing. This was fun.
Me too. Peace.